All right. Hello, Noel. Nice
Hey,
to connect with you and speak today.
nice to be nice to speak with you too, Gabriel. Thank you for
Yes,
having me.
absolutely. And hello, everyone following on, and welcome to another episode of People Just Like You. Uh,
Welcome.
just briefly, People Like You is a project that entails asking questions and discussing with people from all over the world, and in doing so, exploring and celebrating the experiences and lives of people through this window of shared conversation. The goal of People Just Like You is to remind each of us of this reality that we share, that we're all just people at the end of the day, and that while we're each unique in many ways, we also share experiences and challenges and hopes and dreams and many other elements of life, and that our unique paths in life can each teach, inspire, encourage one another as we continue on in our own life journeys. So, yeah, with that, I'm excited to chat with you today, Noel, and ask you a few questions and see what's going on in your world.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'd love to share it. So thank you
awesome,
for this.
for sure. So, where are you dialing in from, Noel? Um, yeah, where are you coming from?
I am calling for from Helsinki, Finland. It's 4 p.m. here and it's very sunny, lots of snow and lots of ice and melted snow and everywhere's very slippery. So
Mm.
slipping all the time, but we're okay. We're okay. Tomorrow we're gonna have some more snow.
Real
Yes.
no.
Oh yeah. Yes. No. Yes.
No, yes.
Exactly. No. Yes. And I was actually thinking of starting to cycle to work from tomorrow.
Ah,
Let's see. Let's see. So.
well, I hope it works. I hope it works out. Do you like to cycle to work throughout the whole summer when it gets nicer?
Yeah. I really enjoy it because the mornings here are very. They're very like should I say it? Like for me, magical would be the word, but it's
Oh,
like the sun is like rising and it's not too warm yet. It's like a little bit warm, a little bit chilly, and it's like such a quiet and um it's kind of like a very special moment, and you're just cycling there. You might see some deers or some animals from here and there, and there are not so many cars around, so it's a very
that
special kind of moment.
that
I
really
enjoy
sounds
it a lot.
magical. Yeah, the way you described it, it sounds like just an amazing way to like start the day and transition from like home to work in this little passageway of magical just presence and
Yeah,
beauty.
I kind of like it's in those kind of moments. I think you most appreciate what is around you when you kind of like stop to, for example, a bridge just to look down into the water or whatever you might see there. It's you kind of appreciate the environment more in these quiet moments
Mm,
because they
beautiful.
are presented in such a different way than you usually see them. Of course, as the day progresses on, and in Finland, we have really hot summers, or at least in Helsinki. Okay, okay. When I say hot, like 25 is hot to me. For some, it's like that's cold. For me, that's like, okay, that's too much already. So 20 for me is perfect. But then it's like 25, cloudless skies, and you're like, oh, can I just go back inside? I'm burning. So, yeah. Then it's like normal day again.
Nice.
Yeah.
I I'm familiar with centigrade at this point. I remember this last summer I was in Spain, traveling around Cordoba and Granada, and it got to like in excess of 40s, and everyone was just melting, and like the sun was. It was so intense in Cordoba that like the sunlight that people had to repaint their like buildings often
What?
because the sun like peeled
What?
off and destroyed the paint, and they had these like huge shades on the windows. They were made out of, I think it was like hemp or some really
Yeah.
heavy like material, and even those were getting destroyed every few years.
Wow.
Siesta was
Oh,
a must. Like when the sun was highest, people just stayed inside and slept. I understood
wow.
it then.
Wow. Wow. That's like I can't do that. Like no, 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 no. So how many degrees was that?
It was over 40. something between
Oh
40 and
yeah.
45.
So, oh, but at the same time, it's like it's nice to have that kind of experience, like somewhere it's so warm that you can just go to sleep and everybody else agrees.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
that sleeping is a good thing. Sleeping is really good. You should sleep enough.
Yes.
But here
Definitely.
we don't have that, unfortunately. But it's okay. We don't get so warm. I would no. I no. No.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah,
Well,
I'm yes, I'm as I said, I'm from Helsinki, Finland. I'm a bakery enthusiast and a person who loves drawing. And
mhm.
after such a long time, I'm also finding my artistic side again. So I'm very excited about that also.
Mm, interesting. Tell us more about what you mean by finding your artistic side again, and yeah, what do you mean by
Oh,
that?
um, that means as long as I can remember, I've always been drawing. You know, when I was a kid, I didn't do anything else than doodle all the time. Like I can't remember doing anything else. Yeah, basically the same thing. But the
Mhm.
thing is, like, and I went to art schools for like such a long time till like I
Mm.
was 20, and but I didn't get into an like it's like art academy where I tried to get in, but instead I got to like bakery line, and that was kind of like joke. But I ended up being there, so I've been doing that for the past 10 years. And but the thing is, I kind of never gave up on drawing or anything like this, but it just wasn't so active. However, I kind of like started drawing more and kind of like experimenting, and I actually had my very own first exhibition this past month. So I will like realize I can't let go of it. So I just have to start bringing it back to my like normal like daily life, and I've been finding it again. Like kind of like I also needed to have this time to kind of like understand why I haven't been able to draw or paint in such a long time. And now I understand better myself and how I work and how I make myself work
Mm-hmm.
in this drawing field, for example.
That's
So yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Congrats on the exhibition and for
Thank you.
welcoming art and that expression back into your life. That's really exciting and good to hear.
Yeah, sometimes I guess we just need to have time for certain things to come back into our lives. And then you're like, oh, it was this easy
Yeah,
or something like this. But you needed to, for example, mature to understand some concepts or something like this,
yeah,
or being more present to yourself to understand what are the blockages in front of you.
yeah.
So
What so what was it that led to you like discovering and reflecting a little bit and bringing drawing and painting back into your life?
mm, it was last year. I was going to Denmark to visit my friends, and I was in the airplane, and I was listening to music and just doodling something on my iPad, and then something very personal, like just like going through things. I usually like write my thoughts and then I draw a picture. And then this person who was sitting next to me, he goes like, "Hey, hey, hey," and like, "Please do not interrupt me now." And he's like, "Hey, I like your way of drawing. Can you draw to my like um presentation? Like
Whoa.
I really like your style." And well, and you know, it's very embarrassing when you're doing something very personal and somebody's like, "Oh, cool, cool that you like it." So, but so actually, I started working with this person, and I actually did make some pictures, illustration to his presentation about Corona, and now we're doing this
Mm,
brain pitch, and that's a very very interesting project. But kind of like he helped me to understand that I can actually do art or illustrations in this kind of working way, and that I can actually create art for other people, not just myself. So that kind of like gave me a different way of thinking about it also. Like it doesn't have to be this like uh, cram thing to do, but it can be something very simple and very like just do it. Just like you make a bread, just do it. It make it fancy, yeah. Just like do it, make it 500 fancy bun, yeah, sure. you know. So make it 500 fancy illustration, okay. Kind of like yeah. Somehow that like helped me to like go forward with it and kind of like started to think about it differently and seeing it in a complete different light and just like starting to practice more and I guess it was more of all the appreciation he had to what I did because I didn't have it.
Mhm.
I never really saw what I did very fancy or anything. And it doesn't have to be fancy. That's the thing. It doesn't have to be fancy, but if it makes you happy and if it's important to you, you have to continue doing it.
Yeah,
That's the thing. What makes you happy?
yeah, that's so cool. Just several things about that just like make me feel inspired listening and hearing how you describe this like transformation of how you were viewing your, something that had been so personal and so like in a particular way for you and like expanded out through this serendipitous like just experience of sitting on a plane going somewhere and someone kind of like interrupts and breaks into your session, but in
Sounds like
retrospect that
someone we know. Huh? That's what you do, don't you?
indeed, I'm that guy on the social media plane poking other people that I'm sitting next to, not even sitting next to. I'm running up to the front of the plane, to the back of the plane, sticking my face in people's seats and saying, "Hey, that's interesting. What you doing?"
So yeah,
Love it.
perfect.
Yeah. Well, speaking of poking people on social media, so we connected on Instagram in the comment section of a post of yours,
Yes.
and you raised this question of whether are people content to just be themselves, and I'm curious, like what life experiences of yours or anything else like prompted you to ask that question.
Mm, Such a big story behind this, um, and so many things. Um, Now I have to take my notes because so many things. Um, to be honest, it's about kind of like understanding where people are in their life. When I say, when I ask like, "Are you content?" It's like from the way they answer, how they answer, and what kind of answer they give. It kind of like tells like where they are. Like you might be struggling with something, yet at the same time you could be content because I still have my house, I have my health, I have my kids, but I still struggle with this something, or I might be very sad. It's kind of like I'm asking, where are you here in life? What kind of understanding do you have about life?
Mm,
And for me, for the longest while, I didn't understand this. For me, it was like I only saw like sadness, and I was so much like this because I didn't want to see, and I didn't want to understand uh, that you can actually get better in life, um, even though you have challenges or you have struggles. And in life, we have nothing else but struggle, kind of like
mm,
everyday struggle. But it's kind of like, how do you go about the struggle? Like, do you understand that like this is such struggle that I actually chose to have in order to grow as a
mm,
person? So for before I kind of like understood that having a conscious choice of what am I doing, it was only about making unconscious reactions to things. Like I was just going kind of like blind in life and thinking the way that I had kind of been taught to think, in this very negative and unsupportive way. And it has taken so much time probably the past decade, 15 years, to kind of like get to where I am. And I can kind of like see it's because I had so many encounters with people who were kind, who were very kind, and asking like, "How are you doing? Like, how are you?" And talking in this very gentle way. Because inside of me, I couldn't talk that way to myself.
Mm.
But through these like meetings, I finally started understanding that this mm, angry way of talking to myself, that is not me. So another part was created on top of it. This gentle way of talking, gentle way of like this kind way of understanding that this is me who is struggling with some pain from past, some traumas. And I am still like carrying all these mm, things from my past, from past experiences that I haven't gone through yet.
Mhm.
So it is like, and through this like understanding, like, okay, I'm still alive. Like even though I have this like traumas, these like past wounds that still are very hurt, I can start to look around and be like, but I'm very healthy. I have my own teeth, and I haven't lost my sight, or I can still hear with my ears. My hands work, my body works. I have lovely people around me who care for me. Kind of like, understanding the process of thought, like, and not being only angry. Of course, I'm not every day. Like most of the time, I'm still kind of like learning to kind of like raise myself on top of that like anger,
Yeah.
and kind of like understand that it's okay, like it's the process, like just breathe, everything's all right. And understanding the effects of the trauma to this day, like you can kind of like think about it. You have some sort of wound somewhere, and someone is poking it just by accident, and people
Mhm.
poke our wounds if we don't cover up them with something. Or for example, if your leg is broken, you have to put this like mm, package to it. I'm sorry, I don't know, but kind of like you have to make this support so it can heal, and people can see like, okay, you're healing. But
Mhm.
with like traumas and mental illnesses and these kind of things, you don't see them. They're more abstract, but that doesn't mean that they're not there. And that then comes like communication, talking, and how important it is to tell, like, instead of like being quiet, I can say like, I'm very sad.
Mhm.
Something sad happened to me just recently, and that's why I'm more shaky, or I'm more on the edge. And people, and then people will be like, oh, okay, if you need to talk, we can talk, but it's okay. Communication, that's me taking care of the situation. Like, I might be more moody right now,
Mhm.
but these are the kind of things that haven't been taught when I was a kid or younger. Nowadays they're taking much more take care of this,
Mm.
and making it very important to communicate and actually have words for these kind of like things. Sorry for
Yeah.
my neighbors.
No worries.
um, um, but and kind of like, the thing is like, through repetition we will learn to become better. And of course, when I say, oh, I'm sad, that doesn't fix anything, that doesn't make it better, but it just gives the other people information. Okay, now we have to be a little bit like, we understand you.
Mhm.
Kind of like, this is how I see it right now. And then comes my bakery work, or in if you're work in a kitchen, if you don't communicate, if you don't communicate all the time, you might have a hot pan on your face. So it's crucial to talk all the
Yeah.
time. Blah 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 blah. We can see Gordon Ramsay. Well, he's not maybe the best example of things, but anyway, there's a lot of talk going on.
Yeah.
And if there is not communication, problem, you know.
Yeah.
And but these kind of things, they kind of like lose meaning when it's something very close to your personal, or in a personal relationship. With like with a friend, you're like, of course I would tell them that and stuff, but it gets like somehow it gets so complex with some like more closer person or something like this.
Mm,
And I don't understand why, but maybe I will one day.
mm,
It's very different.
yeah.
So yeah, I guess this is why, and kind of like just to hear also like how people find their way of being content in life, even though having struggles and challenges, and kind of like ah, kind of like I appreciate when people like, oh, I just broke my favorite pair of boots, and and all my salary went, but that's life. Ha ha ha. I still have my roof, and when they're like, it's just life.
Yeah. Uh, Thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, there's so much in what you just shared that resonates a lot with conversations that I've been having through people just like you, and it's just in normal life.
Yeah.
But it reminds me just briefly of this one section of this book called The Untethered Soul.
Mm-hmm.
And it's talking about how you mentioned like that it took people like sharing gentleness with you to enable you to start to give yourself gentleness and to
Mm-hmm.
start to open up and talk more. And you mentioned your work as a baker. Communication is important, but in this book there's a passage where it talks about how we build these contraptions to protect the pain and the hurt, the negative that we have inside, to make sure that nothing can touch it.
Mm-hmm.
And over time these contraptions get bigger and bigger and bigger, and like any like we instead of trying to heal whatever that is and like look at it and face it, and work with it, you just prevent everything in the world from touching it, and eventually it becomes so unwieldy you can't even move. You
Mm.
can't even leave the room that you're in, and you're bedridden for forever, because you're just so, you don't want to face that pain and cause more pain.
Yeah.
Or another one is talking about how we build these like grand castles, to never go outside and communicate, or connect with the world,
Mm.
because there are things that we're, afraid of, or again are causing us pain. But one day, like in order to enjoy our lives
Mm.
and be fulfilled, like we've got to go outside of our like strongholds,
Yeah.
and maybe the metaphor for that is like and communicate.
Yeah.
Like communicating is what brings you out. And sometimes it requires some people like breaking through into where we
Mm.
are, so like deep inside, and like taking our hand and starting to pull us out, like it's okay, it's, you still have
Yeah.
your sight, you still have your teeth, your sense of taste, like not everything is perfect, but there still is so much in life that is great, even where
Mm.
you are now, and like slowly leading us back outside of this ultimately prison that we build ourselves, that we can't see the light that's outside. So it's beautiful, the lived experience that you've shared, um
Mm.
just there.
That is very. I think I have might have read the Untethered Soul.
Untethered
Yeah.
soul, yeah.
Yeah. Because I kind of like remember there being a chapter about how you have a wound and you do
Yeah.
create this kind of like barrier against it, and you're like, don't
Yep.
come near me.
Yep. Yep.
And when I started to think about that, like, and I just as you said, like some people have to go and pull them out, but they also have to be willing to come out.
Yeah.
And this is very interesting. For example, with learning and education, like I've had a lot of problems with learning and
Mm.
even just like studying, because I just didn't understand the way I learned.
Mm.
And I think because we have to, like, there are people who go through like many hardships and horrible situations, and when they pull through, they have all this information. And for example, I was this kind of kid, like I was so shy, I couldn't come out from my you know barriers, or this like
Mm.
mental walls I had created. And
Mhm.
so every like learning situation was very hard for me. But now, as I have like grown and I have come to understand it better, I see it in other people.
Mhm.
And so I know what to do about it. Instead of being like, why are you not learning? I'm like, okay, you don't understand it this way. So how about this? And then I create different ways of like explaining the thing. And if I say that this is important, then I make it important. I explain to them why is this important. Like I make
Mhm.
so sure that when I'm done teaching them, for example, in my work, we have a lot of trainees there, so I'm having lots of fun because I'm learning so much from them. They're teaching me as I'm teaching them.
Oh, yes.
Um, because every time I'm teaching, I learn more about, oh, I should have taken this into consideration. That's why they made a mistake there because I didn't take care of it.
Mm.
So I know next time. And I love it. I love making a mistakes because next time it's gonna be better.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So and when you have a person who's like very like this, they have the mental barriers and they don't know how to come out there. So I just like, what about this? How to be, how to get them out? Like how to be very positive and like, but at the same time, kind of like strict. Like you cannot do this, but it's very good thing you started doing here. Like kind of like how to give the positive to the things that you want to have, um, occur again, and kind of like saying no to those things that don't work, or and but giving a reason why this doesn't work. And this is so important because the moment you explain, they're like, okay, now I understand. And they won't make the same mistake again.
Mhm.
And that's so interesting when I'm looking at people, or when I'm thinking about my studying times or like this, like the teachers, they don't have the time to explain why. Why can't we do this way? Like, or why is this important? No one really takes really good care of it. So then people are like, I don't know what to do. And when you have these like more sensitive individuals who are very shy and they don't communicate, they don't do anything, they will be pushed aside. And those who are more active, they will get more. And
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
so unfair. That is
Yeah.
unfair. But it's okay. We're going towards a better world where we'll have these individuals who have has gone those like hardships and they learn and then they will start teaching. And
Mhm.
maybe we won't have that kind of like these active ones get more and these ones they don't get more because they're shy. No, I can like hope we will have this like schooling system, but it will be even
Yeah.
so that whatever your background is, school will put you in the same level or like give you whatever you need to study to understand how you learn. And these are kind of like important things for me, very important, like learning and educating yourself and
Yeah.
understanding like how everything is connected and how everything affects everything.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful.
It is. It is, and it's like as the more that we're aware of the different dynamics of how each as people and societies,
Mm,
and small groups of people and big groups of people interact, we're awash in information and data, um, which gives us more of a chance to understand. But then we also have to be willing to understand and take the time to process the data information
mm,
and learn what it means, and also be willing to align and agree on, like, okay, we're going to try this or we're going to try that. We're going to explore universal basic income. I've heard in Finland and a few other places that's been some of the places where it's been tested the most,
mm.
and different approaches to teaching. Like, there's the Waldorf, and Montessori and other types
Mm.
of schools, and maybe
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
surely many others. But yeah, it as human society like continues to evolve and have more time, and as like technology enables us
yeah.
to put on more like autopilot a lot of things that we used to have to spend a lot of time doing, we have the chance, we have the information to be able to continue evolving. And the willingness, does, despite all the feeling of negative news many times, like the willingness to reflect and explore does seem to be growing, and it's encouraging.
Exactly. Yeah, negative information. I,
Yeah.
mm, to be honest, even though there's a lot of not so pleasant things going on in world,
Mhm.
yet at the same time, I feel more hopeful than anything else.
That's fantastic. That's that's great. We should be hopeful. We can be hopeful. It can be tough, with everything going on, but
Yet
yeah,
I still
that's
have my roof. I still have my teeth.
yeah, yeah. And that's one of humanity's like superpowers is to be hopeful, to like always have that chance to,
Hmm,
that inner like spark that, doesn't go out, to see the beauty and the opportunity everywhere.
yeah. And when I just when you mentioned like this kind of like different kind of ways of teaching, like I just heard the other day that they are teaching elementary schoolers like how to process your emotions, and I'm like,
Oh, wow.
oh, oh my goodness, that is
That's
fantastic.
phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, but I can't tell you where here in Finland because I just heard it the other day. But I'm like,
Mhm.
great, that is advancement. Like Jesus, that
Yeah.
is very great.
Yeah.
It makes me so happy to
Same.
hear
I'm
that. I'm like, yes, don't create the same problems we had before. Like we are really going forward because no matter how we try to deny feelings, they are there even though we
Mhm.
can't see them.
Mhm.
Like art is basically created by feelings. So, and so
Mhm.
many things are enforced by feelings. How can we not want to understand them more?
Yeah.
Great,
That's
great.
great. I will keep an eye out for it. Feelings and processing emotions and emotional intelligence
Yeah.
teaching happening around schools here. And that's great to hear that it's being explored there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And yeah. And so you've mentioned it a couple times, like baking,
Mm.
and like teaching others through baking. But what how did you get into baking? What is it about baking that you enjoy?
Mm. Uh, Well, to put it very shortly, everything. Well, to be honest, I just enjoy the process. I I might not be the best baker there is, but I just really enjoy the whole thing of it. Like everything makes it so interesting. But before I go there, I why am I interested in baking in the first place? Well, in my family, we have always baked so much, so it
Mm,
has kind of like been a daily thing for us. Like um, because we didn't have so much money, so we baked.
mm.
And that was the thing I did with my sisters, and it was the thing I did with my mom and my father. Actually, made baked bread when we were younger, but he was more interested about these machines that made the bread, and he was like, "Oh, just put all these ingredients inside, and there's a bread after half an hour. Great!" So he was more interested in this part. But for me, I guess uh, it, I started getting more interested in it after I started studying it. And well, first of all, I was just like more about eating than anything and meeting new people. I I was the person who like wasn't in school, and I just walked around the whole school like chatting to people and eating what they were making because that was me. I just like talking, just testing out different things. It was more kind of like when I started working in a bakery, then it started to click with me more because in school you kind of like just test out things. They don't really create the routine what a bakery has. So in my first bakery work, where I was like for 3 years, um, I started like realizing like at first I was so bad because I didn't understand. But while I was just repeating and repeating and repeating the process, doing the things, and there are so many things you need to know in bakery work in order to make it work.
Mhm.
But and it's just not about making a bread or a bakery product. It's also about going out there and speaking to your customers. taking your coworkers into consideration, taking care of the bakery, the cleanliness, taking care of your body and mental health, taking care like how mm, ergonomic, ergonomic way of working,
Mhm.
and taking care of the machines, taking care of the like that the oven is clean, for example, taking care of the washing area. Like there are so many little things. Like you have to pull these strings all the time, and you have to be very sensitive to it all. Like, okay, now there is some dirt that's not very good. And the bakery I was working the first time, it it was like together with this like sh- bigger markets. So there were people constantly seeing into the bakery, and we had to take a lot of care of it. And you should always take a good care of your bakery, because a clean bakery is a baker's pride. I've been into many places and seen many things, and I think hurry is not a good reason. It's not reason enough to have a dirty bakery, but choices.
Mhm.
And yeah, anyway, uh, but so that um, we constantly had to take this kind of thing into consideration, and also just to show that yeah, this is very cool kind of work, and you have to take all these kind of things into consideration, but also thinking about all the ingredients and stuff. Mm.
Mhm.
But so like what got me like really hooked to it like was that as you get like when you're starting doing something, at first you're always very bad because you don't understand it, you're learning, you just get tired by being 5 minutes standing there. You're like, okay, I'm exhausted because I'm so overwhelmed of all these sounds going around me. And I'm a very sensitive person. Like I don't get scared, but if someone bangs something next to me, I'm like, and bakery is like filled with these kind of sounds, and it took me a while just to there's so much things going on, can I even breathe anymore? Yes, you can breathe. It just took me time to get relaxed there.
Mhm.
And but sensitiveness is a very good trait on a baker, because you have to like understand, okay, this sound now, that this is there's something wrong, that sound is not normal. You have to be like, okay, what's going on? Or now they're talking about something, oh, that's not a good topic, what is going on? Or okay, there's something wrong with this baking, or this dough, what is going, why is it like this? Oh, there's no salt in it. Like you have to be so
Mm.
sensitive to all these. You have to be ready to act, to react to all these things that are going. So it's very interesting. You have to be like, oh, I'm coming, I'm coming. And the better you get, the more relaxed you become, because you start to understand, like, um, because our brain is such a wonderful thing. Like when it has learned something, it will not unlearn it, because all these like synaptic licenses that are created there, the new ones, and constantly
Yeah.
creating new ones and adapting. And so when you have learned one thing, you don't have to take care of it, because your brain will does it in subconsciously, and then you can focus on something else. And the better you get, the more it's kind of like surfing, I think.
Mm.
You start to stand more and you start to understand how the wave works and this kind of thing. So mm, so for me it's kind of like the whole thing that interests me. Like there's not just the bakery, there's not just the baking, there's just not the people, it's not the ingredients, it's not the customers, it's not the packing, it's not the cooking part, it's just the whole thing is so interesting. And like if something happens here, it will affect the whole thing. For example, if a customer asks for something, then we're like, okay, we try to do that, so we create something. And so we have to order different kind of ingredients. Oh, but then again, because the weather was bad at the beginning of this year, so there is not this particular ingredient. So what do we do? So and oh, and because it was so dry, the soil wasn't so moist, so we don't have any crops, so we don't have any flowers. Okay, and so we have to use the last year's flowers, and that is very dry flour, so we have to add more water to it, and so it makes the dough like this. And when you have this dough that is made out of last year's flowers, it feels like this and it bakes like this. And you see where I'm going with this? Just like
Yeah.
everything is so connected to everything. And the more knowledgeable you are, the more you understand, like if this thing here is like this, how it will affect, or if there's more minerals in the earth, how will that affect the water you're using?
Hmm.
But it's just, I'm so interested in the whole thing.
Yeah.
And the better, the more you take care of the whole bakery, like I think in the kitchens it's very important to be very clean, because the cleaner the kitchen, the better the products, because those are the things you put inside your mouth.
Hmm.
And many people, they're like, I don't care what the food is like, I just want it cheap. But what is the cost of that cheapness?
Hmm.
How, at least when I pay a lot of money for it, like it's like there's it okay, it's not always quarantined, but if I go to this like restaurant that has a very high standards and very good quality food, and then they might even have a like a window of displaying their clean kitchen, then I know that I am being taken care of, and these are professionals who want to take care, and they take so much pride in their work. And
Hmm.
when you have a person who takes pride in their work, you like it's like it's like they're motivating and inspiring themselves constantly, because they want to do good. They want to do good for themselves and for you. And
Yeah.
I'm like, why don't we have those fun? Why don't we want to have those kind of people? Why instead we're like pushing people down constantly? No, 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 no. Of course, of course, you have to understand you can't do everything. There has to be some boundaries,
Yeah.
but a happy person creates so much more happiness. You know, when they're okay in their life.
It sounds like you were referencing like learning before, and some that being something that was challenging for a while, but in describing what you enjoy about baking, it sounds like you've just really found your way of learning. You're mentioning
Yeah,
like, how like at first it was is overwhelming, but just how all the information, that's there is important to take into account. And that you've been doing it for years, and now are even teaching others, and that you've just found your groove in the act of baking when it comes to learning. And that's fantastic to hear, and interesting to hear your experiences. And not only like what baking is like, but
mm,
all the things that baking is kind of teaching you beyond just
mm,
the
yeah,
the act of baking itself, about like taking care of just the overall like environment, and how you're learning and how people are communicating and all these other things, all
yeah,
the details that are there.
yeah, definitely. The, I don't know if you have heard something like this, but because our environment creates us,
Hmm.
and we
Yeah.
create our environment. So when you make conscious choices, so how, like if we make this kind of like a conscious environment, like if I place this here, what will happen? And if I do this, um, I'm very interested in like creating this kind of environment that makes me feel like I'm well-being. So when I'm there, I will have the idea I'm I'm I I'm well-being. So
Hmm.
that is well-being, kind of
Yeah.
like, if that makes any sense. So
Yeah.
I'm actually testing this out in my current workplace. Like if I do this, how will it affect other people? This is my testing laboratory. So, but it makes so much sense. Like if you make things cleaner and kind of like create this like space, people, they're like, oh, I can think more. Like,
Mhm.
or if there's this clutter and everything, people like, it's the difference of like even the physical way you're presenting yourself is different. They're like, oh, I feel like I can breathe. Yes,
Yeah.
our brains work like that.
Yeah.
And well, maybe people are learning this, so it's okay. But the one thing I still don't understand is hurry, like or mm, well, hurry, I guess in English. In Finnish we say kiire, but it
Mm.
means basically the same. Like you have to be faster, you have to do this, you have to do that. With the constant pressure of doing and being something. No, of course it's good to have those kind of things, but better to make these like important things, make it them right at first, so you don't have to go after and fix them.
Mhm.
And that's why when we have these trainees, I'm very careful that I teach them these like processes, like with time and precisions, because precision, because then I don't have to go afterwards to clean up, kind of like, and I take care of them, and they actually get this like a good experience, like, oh, I can also learn. and I kind of like throw them questions like, why do we do this? Why do we do it this way? Like, why don't we just do this? And I kind of like actively poke them, like, wake up, hello, we're here. How are
Mhm.
you doing? And it's so
Yeah.
wonderful to see that they kind of like, oh, well, and then they start waking up a little by little. And I want to be very kind of like kind to them, like, yes, great, that's a good answer, that's a very wonderful question you have there, just like you are, you're like, oh, very good question, great. And being kind of like happy for them, kind of. And and when you see that, like, when their eyes are like, oh, well, and they get so excited, you're like, haha, that's so great, they're so excited.
Yes, absolutely.
So I just like hope that every trainee we have, or any person I happen to teach or anything, I kind of like hope that I give, of course, like, people are different um levels in their lives when we meet and stuff like this, but I kind
Mm.
of like hope that when they go forward, they will have like a different kind of way of thinking about learning, or like asking questions, or like, okay,
Mhm.
I don't need to be perfect, but by repetition I will learn. Or I just like hope that even a little bit of that goes forward, because I feel like teaching is something I want to know more of, but it's just not now. First, I have to kind of like fix myself and make myself to my dream, so I can be like, my dream, as it's, oh, my dream is to become a master baker. And that is just a person, who kind of like listens to the strings all the time, like, what is coming next? Where's the storm going? And and while
Mhm.
also teaching the new people about this, like, you have to be sensitive.
Yeah.
um so I have a long way to go, but I want to be 100 years old, so I 70 years, I think I think I will manage. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we've all got more of a chance to live longer and more fulfilling lives than ever before these days.
Mm.
And yeah, but it breaks down into like taking care of ourselves and the day to day,
Well,
and also at the end of the day or life, like accepting what comes. Maybe we will live to 100, maybe we won't, maybe we'll live to 105, maybe it'll be 75,
yeah,
but
yeah,
each
we
day
never
will
know.
it can still be beautiful and bring
Yeah.
contentment. Yeah.
You want to
Well,
be 100 years old?
I don't know. If I yeah, I think it would be interesting, but I think so long as my mind could remain sharp and
That's the
connected,
thing.
then
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that would be, yeah. But we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I've got one last question for you here, and this comes
Okay.
from the last person that we did an interview, Marquita, who
Mm.
asks, "What's stopping you from choosing to be the source of your own joy today?"
This was a tough one, because I struggle with this one every single day.
Mm,
Um, but it's myself, of course, my fears, and I guess also my fear of success. When you're like, oh, I might actually succeed, you kind of like start to hit the brake, like, no, 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 I don't know, I don't know. You get too excited or too nervous or whatever. And for example, for me, I'm a, like even as a kind of like, when I'm a baker, it's very easy to do things. When you're in the bakery environment, you're not doing anything else. It's easy.
mhm,
But for example, if I try to do something at my home, studying or something, my mind is so scattered. Like, even though I have like tried to make my environment more in a way that it would support me, not being
mhm,
so all over the place. And it's all right. I'm still learning. So I'm like, I have to understand this is a process. I will have to do this every day. And every day I'm like, if you do just 5 minutes of something, that is better than nothing.
mhm,
And sometimes it's my fears and or this negative way of thinking or talking like, no, you can't do it, no, why you even try, like you're so old and blah 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 blah. Well, I'm not 100 yet, so 70 years still to go. uh, so and kind of like we I we know better. For example, I don't know if how is it in the US, but in here in Finland, if I buy a packet of cigarettes, there is this like a picture of a lung cancer and something saying like lung cancer, smoking cigarettes brings you a lung cancer. Like
Yeah.
we have this information. Like if I do this, it's bad for me or bad for someone else. Yet I still do it because it's it's so hard to let go of
Mhm.
these patterns, and because we don't know that is there something that is as good as this pack of cigarettes, for example. Now I don't smoke, but I think this cigarette logic makes so much logic for me in my brain when I think about these things. I have some other things. For example, chocolate is my weakness and all the bakery products are my weakness. But it's okay, I get by. um but it's just like kind of like at the same time being understanding of yourself, trying to create boundaries and kind of like trying to figure out what do you want and what are your dreams and to going towards them, and also kind of like just living your life. Like you can constantly being just doing this, I want this, I want this, I want nothing more, and be like completely ignoring other things.
Mhm.
Kind of like you have to find kind of have to find a way to live all in all of that, and understanding how your traumas affect you, or this negative way of thinking, how they're kind of like slowing you down, and also understanding that it's a fear that is down there. And kind of like when I get in really down there, I'm like, what is fear saying? What is it really telling you? What are you afraid of losing or giving up?
Mhm.
And when you kind of like really sit down, because usually I'm like running around in every place when I'm like, oh no, I'm too scared to face this feeling I have. So I was running away from a feeling. So what is this feeling? Why do I feel that way? And and every day it's the struggle, and the struggle is real. And some days you well, some days for me it's like I eat a whole uh chocolate bar, and then I'm like, okay, it was only the fear there. And some days I like sit down and go through it, and then go through my life. Every day is a bit different, but every day I learn a little bit more about myself. And kindness is a very crucial thing here, because you want to be so mean to yourself. At least I
Yeah.
want to be, and it's so
Yeah.
hard. And also, um, and kind of like choosing to be the source of your own joy, kind of like also not comparing yourself to others, in a positive way, like, oh, that would be a cool thing to do, so I'm gonna also do it, but not like because they have that I can't do it.
Mhm.
Don't kind of like not being overwhelmed by what other people are doing, kind of like how to find the happiness in you, and kind of like in the joy that you know oh, I'm just sitting here and just, oh, I have such a lovely room, I did this by myself, or just being so, or what a wonderful weather, what if I go outside and just enjoy the feelings it's creating in me. Why is there comparison? But that's just the way we are also.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many things. I don't know if I have like one certain answer to this, but fear is very good.
Yeah. I from speaking with Arcadia, I think that that would resonate, with her, and that the two of you would have an excellent conversation about that
Probably.
and other topics.
Oh, it would be wonderful to hear. Wasn't she the one he actually did have the site about all this like spiritual things, wasn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah, I
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
check out her site.
Yeah. Inner Me Stories.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, well, I was actually listening to your interview. I was like, wow, amazing. And the way she actually talked about things, like, um,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed when she said, like, I've been letting my way of thinking be loose or something like this. And I'm like, wow, that sounds like me. I want to hear more.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
great.
There it is. Connections, windows into one another's lives and experiences that
Yeah,
like inspire us and encourage us to, to just move forward in our own lives. That's what
yeah,
this is all about.
yeah. But there has to be someone who pokes everything. Oh, what happens when I do this? Oh, what if I do
Yes.
this?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Well, in the vein of questions passed between these interviews,
Mm.
what question would you like to pass on and ask someone else that I speak with?
My question is, what will you choose today in order to make a better tomorrow?
Love it.
Thank you for having me, Gabriel.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure hosting you. And yeah, this has been fantastic. And I
Yeah,
will ask that question and get back with you and keep passing it on. The ripple of inspiration and curiosity will continue growing and poking others. I'll pass your poke on.
exactly. Wonderful. I really enjoyed this, and I hope you don't mind me saying Gabriel. Is it okay? Just call me Gabe was your thing, but
Oh, yeah,
no.
my email. Yeah, Gabriel is great as well.
Okay. I don't know many Gabriel, so I'm just like, I'm having, I'm enjoying myself here.
Yeah,
Great.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you again so much.
Yeah.
And
Thank you
yeah,
also. Have a
absolutely.
wonderful Sunday. I will
Thank
start
you.
preparing for tomorrow and next week, so you
Sounds
enjoy
good.
this one.
You too.
So,
Enjoy the rest and yeah, be inspired and be well in the future.
yep, as you. And do continue doing this. And I wish to hear your thoughts about this also. So,
Yes, we'll do a behind the scenes. People just
exactly.
like you and why and
Wonderful.
how and how much and all of that. Yeah,
Waiting for it.
excellent.
Yep. See you around.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.